live from New York, it's Ask an Engineer.
Hey everybody, welcome to Ask an Engineer. It's me, Ladyada, the engineer. With me, Mr. Ladyada on camera control. I got a great show for you tonight. About 1 hour of the latest news and hacking, making, crafting, 3D printing, soldering, risk-fiving, and more. Thanks to Liz who just did show and tell. Let's kick it off. Tell them what's the code and what's on the show.
That's right. On tonight's show, the code is STEM Day because it is STEM Day in this part of the world, and probably more. 10% off in the Adafruit store, all the way up to 11:59 p.m. New York time. We'll be talking about some of our live shows, including show and tell. Thanks, Liz, for doing that. Our Desk of Ladyada highlights of the week, including the Great Search, JP's product pick of the week, a little bit of a recap and preview of what he's up to on JP's workshop, some advanced manufacturing made in New York City factory footage, some 3D printing video speed ups and more from Noe and Pedro. And we also have Ion MPI, new product introduction this week. It is Beagle Board, Beagle Bone, RISC-V Fun, brought to you by DigiKey. Got some top secret, got a bunch of videos, got a new product revision this week, cooking up a bunch of stuff, but we still have some stuff to share and show. We're going to answer your questions. We're doing that over on Discord, adafruit.it/Discord, where you can ask all the questions throughout the show. But towards the end is when we look directly into the chat and answer your questions real time. So stick around for that. All that and more on, you guessed it, Ask an Engineer. Now, it is time to remind you of something very important. Over the past few weeks, we've reminded folks who are watching our live show, it's a good idea to log into your adafruit.com account. Make sure you have two-factor authentication enabled. Make sure you're ready to go, because the way we do Raspberry Pi 5 sales is we've been doing these live on air, been doing it for a few weeks. So maybe in a few moments, not this second, but maybe in a few moments, because we want to give people time, we might have a few Raspberry Pis we're going to put in stock, and it might be the Raspberry Pi 8 gigabytes. I don't know. We'll see. Right now, nothing's in stock, so I don't know what to say other than make sure you're logged in and have two-factor authentication on your account. So with that being said, you get free stuff.
Freebies when you order from the Adafruit shop. Place stuff in your cart and check out, and you will get some things. $99 or more, you'll get a beautiful 2mm thick PCB coaster with a gold Adafruit logo on it. Comes with some bumpers. Place more orders, get more coasters. Now you have a set of 8 or 4 or 6, whatever. $149 or more, you get a free KB2040. It's a Pro Micro shaped and pinout compatible microcontroller board, but it comes with the RP2040, so it's even more powerful with 8 megabytes of flash, USB-C, and NeoPixel buttons, STEM QT. It's great for keyboard projects or any microcontroller project. Free shipping when you order $200 or more, UPS ground. And last but not least, we're back to having the Circuit Playground Express. For any order over $299, you'll get the CPX, which features the at 7021, has buttons and sensors and LEDs, NeoPixels, and it's a great board for learning microcontroller programming in CircuitPython, code.org CS Discoveries, Arduino, MakeCode, Lua, whatever, all sorts of Rust supports it now. With all the hardware built in, you don't have to do any soldering.
Okay, we do a bunch of live shows. Just to show and tell, thank you so much, Liz. We're going to watch this right after Ask an Engineer. We do show and tell every single week, Wednesday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. You can watch it later. You can participate on the show. We do it every single week on Wednesdays, so come by, show and share your projects. It's a good time. I'm going to mix up things a little bit this week because we're going to do the JP workshop highlight, and we're going to do the product pick of the week. So Ladyada has a moment to put in the Raspberry Pis that we talked about.
Wow, you're telling people.
Yeah, we're going to do it right now.
Oh, we're going to do it.
Yeah, we're going to do it.
Get your card ready.
We do JP's product pick of the week every single week. It's a live broadcast from the product page. This is this week's highlight.
The Pi Gamer. So this is a really great handheld platform for game development as well as development of things that you want to screen and some inputs on. It runs Arduino, it runs CircuitPython, and it's really great for Make Code Arcade. To develop games, you kind of need this big framework with lots of stuff ready to go, and Microsoft has really delivered on that to give you a really seamless experience setting up, learning how to create games, getting them onto your handheld. So I'll go ahead and turn this on, and you can see the little NeoPixels light up down there at the bottom. And it made a nice little sound. This is a game that I found that was in one of the Microsoft game jams. Oh, it allows you to stop time and throw a throwing star. Oh, and that guy's good. He doesn't want to get, all right. Huh, huh, huh. How about another one? Oh, I'm never going to beat that guy. Ah, he got me. Let's let him beat me. It is the Pi Gamer.
Okay, JP's workshop is on Thursdays, and while Ladyada is putting some things in the store, you can guess what they are. In fact, I'll bounce over here real fast. I'm going to hit refresh on the page. We do have Raspberry Pi 5s, 8 gigabytes in stock. This is just for the live viewers, so if you're watching later, sorry, but this is the best way to do it because all the back orders on all the sites aren't shipping for a while. We have a small number, and we're doing it live. Doing it live. Doing it live. So, anyways, back to some video while we're putting some things in the store behind the scenes here.
Okay.
Here is a highlight from JP's workshop that you might enjoy.
You can build a customized Pokeball that plays back macros to your Switch using a Raspberry Pi Pico and the GP2040 CE firmware. Here you can see I've just used the thumbstick to manually spin. Now I'm going to flip on the switch for the USB cable, and as you can see, the macro Pokeball takes over and it'll spin indefinitely until we turn it off. Now this can be pretty much any button combo you can imagine, including things like turbo and precise timings. Check out the Learn Guide to learn more.
Okay, so we do a show on Sunday is called From the Desk of Ladyada. It's a glimpse into the
sick, twisted
sick, twisted mind of in a world with the lady of this
your desk
this Sunday
of torture.
So we're doing hardware. So what did you show in part one? This is usually when you're like, here's what's on my desk right now.
Okay, so I've been working. Okay, so I worked on the Pi camera a little bit. I got the two plates, the front plate, which is an LED NeoPixel ring, and also a back plate that's protective. I think, Melissa wrote a touchscreen controller for the 2.1-inch TFT, which uses a slightly different chipset than I thought. I thought it was a Focal Tech, but actually is a CST 826 or whatever. She wrote an Arduino CircuitPython library. Thank you, Melissa. I showed a revision of the 3.5-inch TFT Featherwing. We are slowly getting through 2 years worth of revisions and updates, and up to 500 revisions total. Some of these are bigger than others, so I show off the big revisions. The Metro S3 got revised. We're putting that in today, and the TFT 3.5-inch TFT Featherwing is also being revised. So
okay,
it's happening.
We also do the Great Search. This is where Ladyada uses the power of engineering to help you find new things on digikey.com. It's a lot more fun now because part shortage isn't over, but it's not as bad as it was peak part shortage. So what did you help people find this week on digikey.com?
Okay, this week we had someone who tweeted about this interesting material, which is oh shoot, what's it called? It's thermal pads, graphene, graphite, thermal pads. And they talked about like this branded version, and they were like, oh, I want to find something equivalent on DigiKey. And I was like, okay, I'll find it out. And so, showed off, there's a lot of thermal pads available on DigiKey, different thicknesses, different settings. I looked for the most thermally conductive one with the lowest resistance. And there's a couple different options available, and you can definitely get like a really big sheet for the same price as like a little teeny square that you would get on Amazon. And I don't, there's no specs for the Amazon one, so like I can't prove that this is better, but also there's no specs on Amazon, so I can prove that this one, at least the one that I picked, is at least the best one you can get on DigiKeys, which is pretty good.
Yeah. And then we did the JP's workshop stuff. So I want to go over and talk about the pies that we just put in.
Yeah.
So there's
are they still in stock?
Yeah, they are. We're doing okay. They're still Some Raspberry Pi 5, 8 gigabytes one stock. Real quick, lady, if someone is wondering, like, if they have a 4 gigabyte one, do they really need an 8 gigabyte one? Do they really need it?
Well, look, I mean, I'm not going to tell you whether you need it or not. I do know that if you're doing kernel compilations, if you're doing website hosting, if you're doing machine learning, definitely machine learning, where you want to have a lot of stuff in memory. I mean, 8 gigs is a significant chunk. If you're just using it as a day-to-day like hardware hacking thing and you're not doing computationally intensive stuff, you may not. But if you're like, oh, I want to run a llama model, or do vision recognition or
If you're
host
doing, if you're
website
doing video or like media streaming,
streaming, yeah, you'd want more RAM. Basically, video is very RAM heavy. AI is very RAM heavy. If you're actually using it as like a desktop computer where you want browser windows and you're doing email checking and you're da da da, yes, more RAM is going to help you. But if you're just like, oh, I want something that like plays an MP3 and blinks some LEDs when a sensor goes off and it sends like a message to Adafruit IO, but you can probably get
yeah.
away with more.
Some good news. It looks like the automated bots that look at sites and see if things are in stock. It looks like one of them might be down right now. So normally, even when we're doing these live on the show, they go pretty fast because, like, Twitter gets swarmed. But Twitter, now called X, is not as popular as it used to be too. And I think we are releasing these off hours. So if there is an issue with some of these bots that look at sites, usually the folks are driving home from their day job and stuff like that. So.
More for you, more
Yeah,
chances.
so
Not more. Don't get more, but get one.
yeah, there was a couple people in the last times we've done this where they were tuning in a little late and they're just like, oh, I just missed it, and they weren't mad or anything. It just wasn't there. So let's see if we still have. Yeah, it's looking good.
Still good.
Okay,
Not in
great.
stock.
So we'll bounce over throughout the show, but these are the ones that everyone wants. Pi 5 8 gigabyte. Go for it. Have fun. On Fridays, we have Deep Dive with Tim at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. This is when you can learn about the innards of Circuit Python and more. And speaking of Circuit Python, we're going to do our Python on Hardware newsletter highlights and more. Well, this week, it's all Python on hardware, and so we have a few different things we're going to talk about. I'm going to save this for part 2 of our little chatter here because someone in the chat said, how do you feel about ARM, any thoughts about ARM investing in Raspberry Pis? That was in our newsletter this week. We have kind of an industry newsletter, I think, now. If it's anything to do with things that Python runs on, we also cover it. Of course, the Raspberry Pi.
It's relevant, definitely.
Super relevant.
Yeah.
So if you follow the chip news, ARM acquired a minority stake in Raspberry Pi. That was announced last week. Strategic investment in Raspberry Pi Limited, the arm of the Raspberry Pi responsible for the new Raspberry Pi 5 and past Raspberry Pi 5 products. So if you think about it, it's kind of interesting. So Sony is involved with Raspberry Pi.
Yes, they already have a minority stake. Because they do the manufacturing in Wales.
ARM is involved.
Yeah.
And then the quote says here, this is kind of interesting. The investment, financial terms of which have not been made public, comes a month after Upton spoke of interest floating the firm of London Stock Exchange at a $500 million valuation, and 7 months after Sony, which runs the Welsh production facility, which makes many of the Raspberry Pi boards, made its own minority investment in Raspberry Pi. And this is another one where, you can see we linked to this if you want to see what stuff we got there. So, Ladyada, what do you think about this? Well, you're not an analyst, but you would be considered one if you started to go on like Mad Money.
Yeah.
How do you feel about this? Buy, sell.
Some buttons.
Yeah, Raspberry Pi button.
Yeah, that'd be cool. First off, it's smart of ARM, right? I mean, I think, Evan did an interview and he said, the RP1 chip that they put on every Raspberry Pi, every Pi 5, they spent, I think he said $15 million in development. It's a custom chip, and the RP2040 also acquired it's a custom chip manufacturing that uses ARM core, and I'm assuming the RP1 also, of course, is ARM core. And so they went from basically giving the money to a chip vendor to giving it to a chip licensing vendor. So it's smart for ARM to come in and say, hey, I want to own a piece of this because they are a driver of the technology. Raspberry Pi computers and compute modules are used heavily in industry. and they are kind of the best on the market. I don't really see. Yes, there are maybe Raspberry Pi killers that are faster and cheaper, but none of them are overall as good of an experience. And the Raspberry Pi is solid. It's consistent. It survived a part shortage. It's still in high demand, is why we're putting them in
As
and
we
people want
speak.
them. And I think, I don't know, usually I don't want to, I'm not speaking for Raspberry Pi, but if I was Raspberry Pi, I would say, look, ARM, you can invest in us, but that doesn't restrict us from using different chipset instruction sets in the future. And I would think that would be wise of Eben, even though ARM, of course, is a British, uh, I don't know if it's a British company anymore. It's owned by SoftBank, I think, but it was started in, England, and so, or in Cambridge. And so he's probably near and dear to his heart. But they might also be interested in looking into the future. There are other chips that can be interesting. That said, ARM has money and they have incentive to have the RP 2040 succeed, having the RP1 succeed. Now they have incentive to provide good licensing terms, to provide support, since now Raspberry Pi is a silicon vendor. I think it's wise. I mean, I would, do the same if I was a chip licensee and a licensor was doing quite well. I would, this way they're both invested in each other's success.
Okay. And then other news, because we're going to bounce around. So, our newsletter has a little bit of everything. I'm going to go to the RISC-V stuff in a second. There's an interesting post that's a follow-up to the BeagleBone coming out. But check out the rest of the newsletter. It's spam-free. We have a separate site. You don't have to worry about anyone sending you other things or sales stuff in the mail. This isn't tied to your shopping account or anything. It's Adafruit Daily, completely separate site because we hate spam, probably even more than you do. But one thing that's interesting, because we made some badges a long time ago. Girl Scout has maker badges. They teamed up with Black & Decker, and there's neat ones for folks who want to show that they've made something in the maker world, and they happen to be in Girl Scouts. The official Raspberry Pi Beginner Guide, 5th edition, is out, and you can just check out all of the different things that's going on in the world of Raspberry Pi. We have projects of the week. We've got all the things that you can do with our stuff. We've got all the things you can do with our partners and resellers that we have, like Pi Moroni. There's a little bit of everything. Anything that you can possibly imagine to build. Lots of signs and displays. Lots of ways to get Internet of Things devices going. It is unending. Doom scrolling is the thing, but this is joy scrolling.
Yes,
because it's all fun and good stuff. GitHub Universe happened today. Apparently, you won an award. We're going to find out more about it. Congratulations, Ladyada.
Yay, thanks.
But the other part that we wanted to talk about, because we have our Eye on MPI tonight, and it's the BeagleBone 5 Fire.
Yeah.
The BeagleBone V.
No, it's a Beagle 5 Fire.
Beagle 5? Okay.
Yeah, because it's RISC-V.
RISC-V. Okay, so there's a new single board computing on the computing module on the block. It's the BeagleBone. And interesting enough, Bunny, who's kind of our, like avatar almost of like the open source.
He's a mascot.
The open source.
Imagine him in like a panda outfit, and he's got a sign, and he's like RISC-V.
Yeah. Well, I think he had his book. He had a bunny character.
Yeah.
It's Bunny.
Sorry, it's a rabbit. Yeah, not a panda. Sorry, Bunny.
So Bunny has an open letter because there seems to be some proposals from U.S. lawmakers to restrict Americans working on RISC-V. And the reason is because they don't want China to have dominance in that ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, actually, while I was researching the polar flag, because I was wondering, what did this come from? So, ARM, I'll say a lot of this is gossip, and so it's unsourced, and I'm going by, I'm repeating gossip of gossip. Is that traditionally, ARM has charged $1 to $2 per chip, or sorry, 1 to 2% of the cost of a chip as licensing fees. So, which is a reasonable amount, but they're they're owned by SoftBank, and they're kind of ARM is so interested, like, well, we should be making more money. Our chips are powering Apple and Qualcomm and the biggest Marvell and MediaTek and the biggest chip manufacturers, and they're making billions and we're not making billions, and why aren't we making billions? And so they are kind of trying to up their prices, and they actually went to some of the Chinese uh, chip manufacturing companies and said, "Hey, how do you guys feel about upping the prices?" And their companies are like, "Well, we're not into that at all, actually." And I was like, "Wait, but you're like, well, I thought you'd be into giving us more money. Why aren't you not?" And so there's kind of this little bit of argument right now because I think a lot of these companies signed in for a certain percentage, and now like ARM wants a higher percentage, or they want a percentage of the full device, not just the chip. I don't know. That of course is all under NDA, so nobody knows the exact details of what they're asking, but the upshot is that this is kind of pushing more Chinese silicon vendors towards like, well, for this much money, why don't we just retool and use RISC-V? And you're seeing more RISC-V development happening. Like Espressif has moved, their latest chips are moved from the C6, for example, has moved from Tensilica to RISC-V. And we're seeing also, like, we'll show this PolarFire chip is what normally would be an ARM core, a powerful ARM core on the previous BeagleBone, BeagleBoard, and BeagleBone boards, blah, blah, blah. They were all ARM Cortex A8s, and now they're, maybe moving to RISC-V. So I think that there's like a combo here of ARM is trying to push for higher licensing fees, and RISC-V is getting much more mature. So RISC-V is becoming a more aggressive and delectable target for chip silicon vendors.
So Bunny has a blog post. You can just search for Bunny blog, BUNNI blog, bunnystudios.com, and it's the first post. And Bunny has a letter that he wrote to the Gov and has a little bit about Bunny, why RISC-V is important, why maybe we shouldn't restrict Americans working on it, and maybe we can do something else, which is make some of these chips here. If it's a technology that's so critical to lots of things ahead, you can invest in making chips. So we'll see how it goes. It's interesting. There's a lot of intersection between, geopolitical stuff right now and technology. So we're watching. It's another thing that runs Python in some way. We've got this BeagleBone that we were talking about from the newsletter this week. So, it is here. It is interesting. This is probably the most interesting time to be doing electronics ever. And tonight on INFPI, we're going to be talking about the new
PolarFire. Yes, interesting.
Check this out. So that is this week's Python on Hardware news. You can get the newsletter delivered every single week. Go over to adafruitdaily.com. Don't forget, you can just look at it as a blog post. You can get an RSS feed. You can look at it on GitHub. We make it super easy to access the information the way you want it at all times.
It was interesting. I mean, I just want to follow up because we chatted about some people are like, well, what does this have? What does this have to do with Python hardware? But as we saw with the RP2040, which is an ARM core chip, a lot of it was designed for running Python on hardware. Like a lot of the choices that were made were okay, if you're going to be using a interpreted language like Python, make sure it has a lot of RAM, make sure that you have stuff like PIO that can do very timing critical stuff that is easily configurable and can change around. Make sure that everything is well documented and doesn't require assembly code. You can use a higher level language to access it. And I think that's part of, as we're seeing maybe ARM chips translate to RISC-V, if you were using ARM specific libraries and instruction sets, that sucks because now you have to port it to RISC-V, you're using Synthesis. But if you're using Python on hardware, you may not need to do that much work at all because the code is going to be identical because it's one level higher than the RTOS even.
Answered one kind of thing because some folks are like, oh, I have to jump through a lot of hoops to order a Pi. These are the only Pis available right now I think, on the internet. And
This is less the work than getting
This
Taylor
is-
Swift tickets.
well, the other thing
I didn't
is
get Taylor Swift tickets.
there's a lot of sites that require a huge amount of different things you need to do, because there's bad folks out there. Just to cut to the chase, they buy up all the Raspberry Pis and they sell them on eBay. There's bots that did this over and over and over again. This is why there was a shortage. Makers didn't get them. So all we do is say, so a verified account with two-factor authentication, and you can do it. Lots of happy people. It's a way to have folks you're watching live. You're going to definitely get one if you order right now.
Yeah, I mean, like anyone who's watching live, you've had 20 minutes.
It looks like the bots are down tonight, that just do the notifications. So
I know.
this is like pretty rare. I think I think we timed it right. Like I said, usually
Great.
during business hours, when the people who run all these different sites or inventory watchers, they're around. I think it just happens to be, they're probably eating dinner with the kids, and they're not looking at their website scrapers and
Quick,
stuff like
bots are asleep. Buy pies.
that. Yeah. Okay. So let's continue on. Let's do a little bit of open source hardware. Speaking of open source hardware, we've got a ton of guides, Ladyada. We have a ton of open source hardware. What's on the big
Yes.
board this week?
Okay, so we've got some guides. I will admit I did not do as many. There's even more guides that have been updated that I have to get to. But thanks, JP, for being patient. We finally got his Power Wash Simulator nozzle control. If you're playing the game Power Wash and you want to feel like you're power washing for real with a proper power washing nozzle, you can fit it out with some electronics. And as you wave it back and forth, you will power wash your van and your cat and your garage and whatever else you want to power wash in the game. Brent has also been doing a massive rewrite of the Adafruit IO basic guides. Thanks also to Tyeth, who's helping out. They're updating it. It now covers Whippersnapper. It has new screenshots. It's better and ever. Those guides are like easily a decade old. They were written by 3 generations ago people who worked on IO. Todd. And you did great, but it's time for a refresh. So they've been refreshed. And it also got a new guide over there. The Pokemon Macro Battle. I think we have a video. We played the video already. Thank you, from JP. Just using, I think it was like GP2X or something. It's a firmware for the Raspberry Pi Pico that allows it to turn into like a keyboard macro converter, which is awesome. You don't have to do any coding. You don't have to open up an IDE. It's all web programmed. And if you use the Pico H, which we stock, to turn on the trigger, you just put a wire. You don't have to do any breadboarding or anything. Even a simple wire can be used to create a macro. So this is a macro that spins you around so you can hatch eggs in Pokemon Silver. I don't know.
And if you look on our Learn system, there's a new link called Playground, and I have it here. You'll recognize some folks from the community, DJ Devin, C. Grover. There's a lot of guides that we wanted to get out there from the community using the authoring tool that we have and having all the things that people love, which is no ads, no weird tracking. You can look at all the guides without having to log in.
No login required.
And you can see them full page, and there's no shenanigans.
And we don't sell your data. We're not using this to market. We don't make you sign up for. There's no thing that pops up and says sign up for a newsletter.
Yeah, and so there's sites out there that do contest sites, and they have an ad model and sponsorship, and
we have RSS feeds.
Yeah, and so we're just going a different way. Buy some hardware from us that keeps us going. But this is kind of our, another, we think put more value into the world. So just a couple highlights. This is kind of neat. This is, I think DJ Devin's in the chat too. You can check out this guide. You can
epic. And we're going to be adding more and more. I mean, we start out really slow. Like we didn't even allow Google to index these pages, and we kept them, we only highlighted ones from the people that we knew, and now we're letting more people get highlighted. We're gonna allow embedding,
and we use this for our team too. So this is our own tools that we like to use as well. So anyways, we thought this was fun and interesting, and we support do not track on the site, so you have to click through for a YouTube video. This is kind of the place. It's kind of like back in the day, the way the web used to be. So I think breaking news. The Pi 5 just hit RPI locator. So it's going to go in a second.
You gotta go.
So, one of the things that we like to say is like Adafruit's a good cause and a good business. And the feedback you get sometimes, well, you can't do both. And I think when people say you can't do both, they're kind of, I don't mean this in a mean way, but they're kind of the problem, because you can do both. You can just, maybe it's easier to go another way, but that's why we're doing this. We think this is a good thing for the community where they can just know that it's going to be here. It's around. There's not ads. There's nothing weird about it. It's not trapping people in. And it gets the information out there. It celebrates open source, and it comes from us, and, get a hold of us, or, we're around. So it's not like who owns this? What is this? It's us.
Who is really in charge?
Yeah. And so anyways, we thought this is something that folks would join. So far, so good.
Yes. So please check it out.
All right. Let's go to some main New York City factory footage. And that's our factory footage for the week this week. Let's do some 3D printing. We're going to play these back to back. We have the day after Halloween, the holiday decorations go up. So we get some holiday projects and a speed up. We're going to play that right now.
Build a light up 3D printed tree with LED noodles, a cutie pie, and an LED driver. This features 8 helical spokes that spiral and taper to form a tree. Each LED noodle fades sequentially, creating a subtle effect. Powered by an Adafruit Cutie Pie RP2040, this tiny dev board connects to an AW9523 LED driver with STEMMA QT. Adorned atop the tree is an elegant topper with the Adafruit logo as its star. Wires are cleverly strung down the center of the tree, concealed under heat shrink tubing. The tree stands at 11.5 inches tall, making a festive addition to any holiday decor. CircuitPython support for the AW9523 LED driver lets you control LEDs with PWM. The demo code features gamma correction for controlling the brightness of each LED. We think this is a good resource for LED projects where you want smooth fading. The dev board and LED driver reside in a mount that's secured to the base of the tree with screws. A cover fits over the base and features an engraved symbol of a snowflake. We hope this inspires you to check out LED Noodles and CircuitPython for your festive projects.
Okie dokie. Don't forget every Wednesday there is 3D Hangouts with Noah Pedro. You can learn how to make all those things and more. The longest running and only live 3D printing show on planet Earth. Don't forget to go to STEM Day. It does not apply to Raspberry Pi units as a reminder. Y'all know that, but gotta say it. We're still doing some Pi stuff right now. There is only 62 left. Let's go check it out just to see if that's still. Just refreshed a minute ago. 61. Cool. There's 61 Raspberry Pi, 8 GB. These will go fast. You can get these now. Just make sure you have two-factor authentication and your account's verified. That keeps the bots and the people buying them over and over and over and trying to sell those on eBay bad human, but there's things that we can do to make it better. Okay, let's do some INPI.
On NPI.
INPI brought to you by DigiKey and Adafruit. Every single week we have something cool that's new. This week from beagleboard.org,
Yes.
the open source hardware provider, one of your favorite small board
I think
computers.
it's one of the only true open source hardware single board computers.
Yeah.
Which I give them a lot of credit for. We'll talk about that. They
What
have
is
a new
it?
board that just got released this week, so it's perfect timing because it's in stock at DigiKey.
Speaking of,
It is the Beagle Fire 5, or Beagle 5 Fire. Sorry.
this is fire.
It's fire.
This is fire.
And it's called that because it features a polar fire processor. So it looks a lot like the BeagleBone Black, if you guys remember that. And they've also had like the BeagleBone Green, multiple versions, and the Beagle 5 ahead. This is the new Fire, which comes with lots of hardware accessories, the same pinout compatibility, works with accessories that have already been created for the Beagle Bone Black and Green, but it has a new processor core. Let's just look at the back real fast. It's got this new Syzygy connector, which is kind of neat. Micro SD, and lots of passive components. The top is what the exciting part is, because it is featuring a Polar Fire SoC FPGA from Microchip, and that's where the Fire comes from. The 5 is because it has RISC-V core, and the Fire is from Polar Fire. So what it's got on the inside is a core, and this is interesting, is, I thought it was like, oh, there's a processor and there's a separate FPGA, but it's actually like yes, it's a FPGA slash processor, but it's combined, actually, it's in one chip. It's for the Polar Fire family, which I will admit I should have written down the exact part number. It's in the text that goes with this video. I don't recall it, but the Polar Fire family. And inside are 5 processor cores, 4 of which are fast enough to run Linux, and one of them is like a monitor core, so like it's a lower power microcontroller core that could probably be used for monitoring the system and doing, a low power sleep mode type stuff when you want to shut down the main core. And this is very interesting because originally the BeagleBone was ARM Cortex A8s and family, and now they're moving more to RISC-V. And as we know,
RISC architecture is going to change everything.
Yeah, RISC is good.
RISC is good. So the RISC-V core processors inside, like I said, it's a quad core. It's based on the RISC-V specification, so it does not have an ARM core. Instead, and this is not implemented on the FPGA. These are actually separate and on the same like die or whatever, the same package as the FPGA. But these are, you're not emulating the RISC-V. The RISC-V is like there. It's in ROM silicon, whatever. It's not emulated and are implemented within the FPGA, and it follows specifications, and it's a core that they have even ported Linux to. So it does, like most BeagleBones, boot into Linux Ubuntu. And this is interesting because, a lot of people are, as I mentioned, ARM has been looking to maybe update their pricing for core or device, royalties. You're interested in designing, custom silicon. Normally you would go straight to either an 8051 or you'd go to ARM. But now there's kind of like, a third party has entered the chat, RISC-V. And this chip, an interesting way for folks who want to take advantage of using the, open and unlicensed RISC-V architecture, but also want to create additional hardware interfaces that may not require you to necessarily come up with your own silicon, right? You get the benefit of custom fast hardware interfacing without the silicon because the RISC-V core part's taken care of for you, and you do the FPGA part for the extra, and at no point do you pay ARM anything, which is, a nice benefit. All right, so this is the part number. It's the MPF S025T. So this is, the polar fire core that again is it's the system on chip / FPGA that is the heart and runs Linux on the Beagle Fire. It's got the hard CPU and the FPGA edition. The FPGA fabric, I've got the specs down here, 23,000 logic elements, 4 input LUTs, 68 math blocks, 2.7 gigabit per second SerDes lanes. And separately, if you see the microprocessor subsystem, there's also one 64-bit RISC-V 64 iMac monitor boot core and 4 RISC-V GC application cores, and that's what's running your operating system and talks to the FPGA. And then there's also RAM controllers and other peripheral accessories that are needed to get your Linux or whatever operating system you want up and booted. Some more specifications. So the core has, it has onboard memory, which I thought was, this is the specs for the Beagle 5 itself. So in addition to that FPGA SoC core, which has your microcontroller, your microprocessor, and your FPGA, it also has, you saw SDIO slot, quad SPI, has NV RAM, which I think you could probably use for storing like, FPGA configuration. So it looks like EEPROM NVM, maybe SRAM NVM. It's got 2 GB of LPDDR4 memory, 16 GB of onboard MMC. So, if you want, use an SD card, but you don't have to. You can boot directly from the built-in MMC memory. And SPI flash. I bet the SPI flash is for the FPGA configuration. And all the hardware that is, standard. I mean, they've packed a lot more hardware than usual. Now comes with M.2 key, so you can do PCIe SDIO, has a CSI connector, has Ethernet, gigabit, USB-C high speed, and of course it has Tag Connect for JTAG debugging, and it has those like 2x20 headers for connecting capes and other accessories that would be designed for the BeagleBone. I put this here just because there's like a lot of details about the Polar Fire SoC. I've never worked with one of these processors, but I think what's interesting here is you get the benefit of, if you don't want to, you want FPGA for, hardware interfacing, you want to drive specialty machinery, robotics, motor controllers, LED displays, TFTs, whatever. You do that on the FPGA side, but the part that you don't have to worry about, the Linux kernel, device drivers, memory management, that's in hardware and taken care of for you, but you have a very tight connection between the two because they're on the same chip package. The chip itself is $75. So if you're just buying this just as a dev board for the Polar Fire, it's actually a pretty good deal because you get the whole thing for $150 and you get all those other accessories and it's fully assembled and tested. Compared to most FPGA dev boards, this is a really good deal. Most FPGA dev boards are like in the couple $100 range. This one has everything, and like I said, you turn it on and it immediately boots into Ubuntu. Quite nice. All the accessories built in. One nice thing I noticed is they have screw terminal power, because that could be nice for industrial applications and robotics. They do have a JTAG Tag Connect. They've got the cape header, built-in memory, built-in flash, camera connectivity. The PCIe camera and cape headers do go through the FPGA, so that's where you would, if you're going to program that hardware interfacing, that's where they would come out into. LEDs on-off button. Built-in Ethernet driver, that's kind of handy. Notice that there's no Wi-Fi or wireless, but I think what they're expecting is people would use this with, if you're using 1 gigabit Ethernet, you need high data transfer bandwidth, and so you wouldn't necessarily use Wi-Fi. On the back, this Syzygy connector is interesting. I was like, is this a standard? It's something they came up with, but it's basically like you have M.2. This is like another M.2 like thing where you have a bunch of fast lanes if you need to, connect to some hardware that requires very fast differential signaling. And, as I mentioned, one of the nice things is because it's the same size as the BeagleBone Black, you can use stuff like our case, which is in stock at DigiKey. Thank you, Jason Kridner, who, mentioned this, that they were an event. They just used our case, which has a nice clear top, and popped the Beagle Fire in, and it fit just fine because it's exactly the same physical layout as it was before. And it does have cape compatibility, so you can plug in existing hardware that you've designed for previous versions of the BeagleBone, and I think we still stock our prototyping cape, so you can use that as well. For talking to the FPGA, so obviously, the RISC-V part, you boot the Linux image, you burn it in over USB or whatever, or you have it on the SD card, you're good to go. But if you want to program the FPGA, you're going to have to use Libero. It looks like a lot of people want to use Yo-Yo Assist, but it's not available. Again, I don't know a ton about the different open source tool chains, but they do provide tool chain, and it looks like when you register the device with Libero, you enter in the MAC address for the BeagleBoard Fire, and you get a floating license, so you don't have to. I do not believe you have to pay for a separate IDE for the FPGA. And they're providing the gateware that will interface with, MIPI CSI, so they have like the basics to get you communicating over that, as well as M.2. So, that's when you're doing the FPGA, you're like, what is the hardware I'm interfacing with? Those are your hardware interfaces for the custom FPGA work that you might want to do. And like I said, this is one of the few truly open source hardware single board computers. The files are up on their own Git repository, and not on GitHub. They have their own private Git repo. They posted the files. I looked. Schematics are there. The board files are there. Gerbers are there. You could run your own board if you wanted to.
Available on DigiKey.
Yes, it's actually in stock as of like today. So I wasn't going to feature. I was going to feature something else. Last minute, these came into stock. So check it out. You can pick one of these up. I think, for the price, if you want to do PolarFire development, and you want to have, again, the stability of having a well-maintained Linux distribution, Ubuntu, and then you have your robotics platform running on top of it, this is definitely going to be way more well integrated than taking a single board computer, buying a separate FPGA, and then like trying to mush them together. Like,
here's what I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
If you're the type of person who likes buying dev boards, likes experimenting, please buy one of these, and I'll tell you why. This is the most important thing, I think.
What?
BeagleBone.org continues to do open source hardware. Not everybody does. They do. They do a really good job. And this is, you could say it, you could say you like it, you could say all those things, buy a board. And
they are one of the very, very few. I don't believe there's any other.
And their origins came from Texas Instruments. This is really cool.
Yeah.
So pick one up. That's this week's Eye on NPI.
Eye on NPI.
Okay, new product's gonna be short this week. We have a revision, then we're gonna go into some top secret and some questions and get you out of here, lady.
Yes.
Let's jump right in. Okay, the new product of the week this week is the revision.
Yes, it's a revision, but it's a pretty big revision. Rev B of the ESP32S3 Metro. I messed up Rev A. It's a very exciting way in which I messed it up. I accidentally used the octal PSRAM pins on the SPI port. And it passed test because when I was doing my testing, I tested the PSRAM and then later tested the SPI, and I was like, oh, everything seems to be working. And if I had done that in the opposite direction, I probably would have caught this error. But now it's fixed. So Rev B is fixed. Moved a bunch of pins around, so just be aware if you have a Rev A, very unlikely you do because we didn't sell that many before this was caught. Just email Adafruit support and we'll send you out a Rev B in exchange. And you'll have to update to the latest version of Arduino and CircuitPython if you want to get those SPI pins and the NeoPixel updated because all those had to move around. But other than that, most of the pins didn't change. It's still, I think, a really great board, and I'm glad it's out. A really good development platform for the ESP32S3 with 8 megabytes of octal PSRAM, 16 megabytes of flash, and lots of add-ons like could go off of 9 or 12 volt power, the RX and TX hardware interfaces exposed, micro SD card slot, USB Type-C, 7QT, battery power. It has fairly good low power support, on-off switch. Yeah, it's a nice dev board for ESP32S3 configuration.
All right, and with that is new products of the week this week.
New.
Okay, so load up your questions over on Discord. Some folks already have Adafruit.ats Discord, discord.gg/Adafruit. We're going to do some top secret right now, play 4 videos, and then we're going to bounce with questions. And that'll be our show for tonight. So load them up in the Discord chat. Here is some top secret. All right, Ladyada, what is this?
This is a 2.1 inch 480 by 40 display. We've showed this off with our Qualia ESP32 RGB 666 driver because this is a raw TTL display. But what's new is that we now have a driver for the capacitive touch. Yay! Thank you, Melissa, for writing the driver. Normally, these displays use a Focal Tech chip, but this one actually uses like a CST, who knows, some other manufacturer for the capacitive touch, but she did a great job doing Arduino and CircuitPython libraries. Next up, we're going to get the capacitive touch working for Big Bertha here. This is the 4-inch diagonal screen, really beautiful, large, covered with fingerprints, bezeled capacitive touch. This one has a separate little tail for the cap touch, but we'll make a little breakout for it and hopefully get this one up and running soon. So lots of round touches.
All right, Ladyada, what's this?
This is me testing out my new rev of the 3.5 inch 480 by 320 TFT Featherwing. Historically, this used an STMP 610 or 811, discontinued and end of line. So now it's a TSC 2007, which is also I2C, which is nice. Added a STEMMA QT port. Still has the SD card, reset on off. Oops, forgot a pull-up resistor. New boost converter for the backlight, and I'm running this demo, and the way the demo works is I want to test as much hardware as possible. So it draws on the screen, it loads an image from the SD card, and then it turns on these little touchscreen paint demo, so I can verify that the I2C works, the TSC works, the IRQ works, the SD card, the backlight, and the display, and this hardware is good. Going to add this resistor and send out some PCBs.
All right, Ladyada, what is this?
Well, I had a bunch of time yesterday thanks to having a day off at Adafruit. We give everybody the day off, which means I can work on some hardware. This ICN 6211, it's a DSI to RGB TTL converter. So on the other side here, I've got this beautiful 4-inch by 720 by 720 screen, but I'm going to get it working with like these round displays that I've got, capacitive touch, bar displays. I've got here my Pi 5. I've got the cable adapter. I'm using my Pico probe to do the console debugging for the kernel hacking. I got a mouse here, and then this is going through the DSI connector to the TTL display, and it's like a full speed display, and I can like use my mouse and click things, and I can open up a web browser. And right now what I'm working on is configuring the ICN 6211 automatically using this ATtiny 1616, and then what I've got here is, here is my little CP2104 to UPDI converter. So there's a ton of stuff going on here. Hold on, let me restore my graphics. But what's really nice about using DSI is it's like full color, 24-bit, beautiful, high speed, much better than SPI TFT displays. So it's happening, coming soon.
Ladyada, what is this?
This is a Raspberry Pi Pico probe, and you see here that there's like a little U, and here there's a D. This is the debug port for SWD debug, and this is a UART port, and this exposes a serial COM port that you can use to debug things like a Raspberry Pi 5. So if you want to set up your Raspberry Pi 5 and you don't want to SSH in and you want the debug output, you can connect to the little UART port here. It's a JST SH3 using the Pico probe and the cable that comes with it. And here it is in the shop, so it's $12. And it even comes with, the cable that you need to plug it right in, so there's no soldering required. And then it shows up in, like here, it shows up as a serial port, not the Scilabs one, this one, COM8. And then I just use PuTTY, and I'm in, and I can like edit my device tree overlay stuff. what I'm working on is trying to get these cool displays working. So I need to be able to log into the Pi 5 and debug some kernel stuff. But it's happening, and this is a cool, handy trick if you have one of these.
All right, and live to the top secret.
Oh, sorry, this is
the top secret view here.
Yeah, so this is I just wanted to show because this is kind of fun. I've been working on this. This is the Pi 5, and what's neat is it actually has 2 display ports. So I'll be able to have 2 of these displays at once, and I'll just focus it in. So this is one of our nice 4-inch square 720 by 720 displays. And we also got like the round displays and the rectangular displays, hopefully working soon. And this is going through our the ICN 6211 dev board. I have to do a couple changes to this board, so it's not quite ready yet. But it connects through the TTL to this chip that then converts it to be able to take DSI data from the Raspberry Pi. And you know what's nice about the DSI interface is how fast it is. So there's no tearing. It's like instantaneously fast. It has the hardware acceleration update. So basically, you know, it uses the same core as HDMI. And I don't think this has internet because I think it was using Ethernet. But let me see, I can open up a browser. And you know, if this was working, I could connect to the internet. Oh yeah, the internet is like, hey, I'm not working. Oh yeah, I don't have. Yeah, I did forgot to put in the password. But coming soon, and what you know, my goal is to make it so you can connect any screen and configure it without having to compile any kernels or do any like complicated device tree stuff. That you can be able to plug in anything with the same connector, just like we did for the ESP32S3, but now doing it for the Raspberry Pi.
Okay.
So coming soon, and not yet. Don't ask.
That's top secret. Okay, we're gonna do the questions now. We have a bunch lined up. Okay, so first up, a little shout out. Thanks, Melissa, for the quality updates. Just starting to play with it now.
Yes, she's actually constantly working on it. So more chips, more displays coming soon.
And then this one, someone wanted to know how to use a STEMMA QT display with the Feather ESP32V2. The folks suggested Discord.
An OLED, yeah. Like,
might have some
it's one of our OLED display. We don't have any TFTs at our I2C, but we have OLEDs at our I2C. You could plug it in, and we have Arduino code, and we have CircuitPython code.
Okay. Someone asked if it supports 5-volt I/O. Metro M7 5-volt I/O compatible. Can you use 5-volt shields?
No, it can't. But honestly, so many Metros and Arduinos are 3-volt only that most don't require 5 volts anymore. They use the IO ref pin, and so you can use 3 or 5 volts. So I don't know specifically what you're talking about. You can get 5-volt power, but the logic level is going to be 3.3. I think only like the new Uno R4 is a fast 5-volt compatible shield board. It's very rare to see faster chips these days that are 5-volt logic and have USB.
Okay. Someone noticed it was going around on the socials. Looks like JLC PCB is going to do UV printing on circuit boards. That'll be a lot of fun. People will be able to do a lot of cool artwork. We'll experiment with it as soon as it comes out. Looking forward to it as well. Will the hardware light mod still be required on new revision of the 3.5-inch TFT Featherwing like it did in the original version for the PWM backlight?
Yeah, it does not have the backlight automatically connected because it's easy to solder a wire, and I wanted to save pins.
Okay, is it difficult or costly to make a Wi-Fi board with both chip antenna and UFL?
It's not trivial because you have to have a switch that will switch between the two if you want to not have like a stub. So it's non-trivial, and that's why you don't really see it so much. I'm trying to think if there's any dev boards I know of that have both. I don't. I think usually you have one or the other. You could design it, just most people don't want to spend the extra $1 or $2.
Next up, is USB-C power delivery enough to run a Pi 5, or do I need to get one of the official power supplies?
You can absolutely use any USB power delivery 5-volt 3-amp power supply. You just won't get as much current to the USB port. Is it enough? I mean, you have to just add up your power budget. I think as long as you're not trying to drive a gigantic screen off of it, or you're not at
A couple
USB.
people are saying they're doing fine with that.
Yeah, I think if you plug in like a hard drive and you're like, okay, I want to run that off of
You'll
USB.
probably find out.
Yes, you'll find out.
Plug around and find out. um, and then this is a really good question. We'll probably end it with this tonight. Do you ever plan on getting into the cats of engineering? So we had a cat in MOSFET. You'll probably remember MOSFET. Amazing cat. Still think about MOSFET every day.
Amazing cat. He's a
And
great cat.
great cat. You know, ran Adafruit with us from tiny apartment to all the way.
He was there for our first
For everything.
Yeah.
Everything. Yeah. And we have a kid now, and so we don't have any pets. And one of the things that we're noticing is our kid likes dogs, and that's cool. So there might be a doggo of engineering, maybe a cat
I'm
of
not a
engineering.
dog person, but she really likes
But
dogs.
what I thought we would do is wait until she can, talk and say sentences, and then listen to what she wants to do. Because I feel like if we're going to get a pet,
It buys us some time.
yeah. So yes, the answer is yes. At some point, absolutely. For a cat, the name that we had already picked out was Gerber's, and we called it. So don't do it.
You can't. Don't even think about naming your cat Gerber's,
Yeah.
because we called dibs
Yeah.
on Gerber's the cat.
And
And Zener the cat's also taken by evil mad scientists. You can't call your
Yeah.
cat Zener.
yeah.
I mean, you can. Actually,
Okay.
nobody's stopping you.
Okay.
Go for it.
Them's our questions.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. So don't forget, the code is STEM Day. We very much appreciate you hanging out with us. We, of course, ran out of Raspberry Pis. It hit 0 just a little while ago.
Great.
A couple people were a little mean. They sent some nasty emails. By the way, I checked. They're a little mean. You know what?
Why?
They just didn't get them in time, and they were angry about that. But we do it every week. It's the most fair. But then there was so many people who were like, "Thanks for trying to make everything fair and doing such a good job." So it's okay. That just happens. It wasn't like it used to be, which was really bad.
Yeah, it wasn't like a bazillion emails.
Yeah. So I just want to say thanks to everyone who, when you have context, you see what we do every week and try to make everything fair for everyone. But if you're watching and you're frustrated, don't worry. Make an account, get two-factor authentication. When we have high units, that is the best way. There's all sorts of notifications that we do. You'll get an email when we have enough. There's the shows that we do live. Do our best that we can. And I'm thankful for the folks who've told us, "Hey, good job. I got one. I do this for a living, or I've seen this in the communities, or I've seen this in the electronics world, and you're doing a good job with this." So we appreciate that. That is our show this week. We will see you next week.
Thanks,
This
everybody.
has been an Adafruit production. A special thanks to Zay behind the scenes, our entire community, our customers, our team who makes this thing go. We will see you later. Here is your moment of Zier.